Always a favourite on every rural road. Hyundai Country Calendar.
A small farm, it's not sustainable on its own. But with the wool carding, it all works hand in hand.
I like playing with wool. I'm a bit like an alcoholic in a brewery.
I think the wool's easier to handle than the sheep.
What I like about our business is that we enable people to use their own imaginations through craft.
A cool August afternoon near Rays Junction in South Otago. And for Stuart Peel, it's mustering time.
We are getting these twin ewes in for shearing tomorrow. Rather them than me, it's probably a wee bit chilly at the moment.
Some of his ewes have already been shorn, and Stuart has managed to sell the wool to his fussiest and most discerning customer, his wife Barb, who runs a separate wool business.
Nice and long, good craft length, very sturdy, not too much, no tip on the end, that's great, no veggie matter. Well done, husband, you'll get top dollars.
At 160 hectares, this is the smallest farm in the district.
It's a pimple, and everybody else got big farms, but yeah, the farm's the size that you want to work and the life that you want to lead. You know, fair enough, a big farm might be nice, but you know, it doesn't suit me. You all right? Good girl. Now I've got enough here to keep me entertained.
Stuart has two breeds in his coloured flock, Romneys and Gotlands.
Romneys are a bit more docile and they stay where you tell them to stay, and not like a Gotland that only needs a wee hole in a fence like a goat and it's gone.
The shearing shed on the Peels farm is full of different types of wool. Barb buys white wool from other selected farms, processes it, then sells it to people to do wool craft like knitting or weaving. Her coloured wool usually comes from the home farm.
We source our wool from different places. I'm quite fussy on the wool that I do buy in for the business, even to the extent with my husband. If his wool's got too many prickles in it, or it's too short, or it's got a break in it for some reason, I just don't buy it.
I think the wool's easier to handle than the sheep. If you've got Gotlands that are like goats or deer, they'll just jump everywhere and carry on and drive you crazy.
What I'm looking for is a nice good length of staple. No breaks in it, nice and strong. And then the soundness of the structure. Yeah, like that. You can hear it pinging. Sound is beautiful.
Meanwhile, Stuart is off to check on the rest of his stock.
Well, for all animals, you've got to look after them well. If you want the money at the end of the day, then you've got to feed them well and put everything into them. Try and get up once a week. To have a look around. Over calving, I was up every day, sometimes twice a day if something didn't look right. Over lambing, I'll glance for the ewes and lambs with the binoculars from a distance. I don't go around and disturb them too much. I'll go into more hands-on with the cows. Yeah, when the hoggets start lambing, they'll be more hands-on. I'll go in and help them because being teenage mothers, so you need a bit more of a help when they think they know it all. I like walking around with the cows. From 4 days old, they've been here, and some of them are 10 years old now. So if they don't know me by now, they'll never know me. Yeah, no, they're really friendly.
There's another side to the farm's wool business too. Barb processes individual fleeces and returns them to their owners ready for spinning. Today, staff member Marilyn Butler has plenty of work ahead of her.
Customers send it to us and we weigh it up and have a look at it, and then we give it its own little tag. Everything's got its own ticket because we've got probably 50 or 60 customers worth of wool in here. We don't want to get it mixed up. And we get some really good stuff that we just enjoy working with. This lady here did all this possum. She caught them herself on her rose bushes, and then she plucked them and fluffed it all up with a carder, and she sent us some wool, some really nice merino. So I'm going to blend these 2 bags of merino with this giant bag of possum, and she's going to get some amazing stuff back.
Marilyn's first job is to wash the wool.
We can do little amounts. People send us a fleece or a part of a fleece. All of our main lines of stuff goes to the Scarrow wash type. But if you've got your little pet lamb out in the yard and you want to spin the fleece, then you can send it to us. I'm adding dish detergent and I'm adding washing soda. The alkaline dissolves the wax and the grease in it. Rinse it to get all the grease, the dirt and the detergent out of it. We rinse it until the water runs clear. And then we spin it out, because you can put a fleece in the washing machine on spin and it doesn't do it any harm at all. We do everything to preserve it in a manner that it can be carded.
But before it's carded, the wool needs to be dried.
Spread it out to dry. We've got this terrific dryer. It's got a big fan on the end, and the wool lays on top of it and the air blows up through it. This time of year it can be dry overnight, and then bag it up back in its own bags with its own tag, and it goes back into the shed and waits to be carded.
My name is Thomas James. I'm a Hyundai Pinnacle Program student. The internal combustion engine is a 150-year-old machine. Electricity will soon power everything. Cars, ships, planes, shoes. Storing it is the trick. We live in a world plagued with opportunities. What's an obstacle but just something to climb?
Ah, Special K. Those humble little flakes are rich in vitamins and minerals. And you can have it this way, that way, or however you like. Now that's actually pretty special.
Hi, girls. Come on.
In South Otago, Barb and Stuart Peel farm more than just sheep and beef. Stuart has a small herd of milking cows too, which he's rather fond of.
I'd rather have them than sheep. Hello, ladies. Come here, dear. Here. Peanut, hop up. Go, lucky.
He enjoys the time he spends milking.
Gives me time to relax in the afternoon after I've been out working or doing something. It is nice to sit there, relax and talk to the cows.
With only 7 cows and milk, he knows each one well.
We've got Blackie, Peanut, Sweetheart, Lucky, Bright Eyes, Sassy, and Butter.
Stuart's wife Barb uses the milk to feed new calves that they've bought in. 35 of them arrived on the farm when they were just a few days old.
The reason we buy them is we're stocking up our own herd, as well as we're rearing calves for somebody else to make a bit of money. Of the calves that we're feeding here, 20 are pre-sold and 15 are for our own herd. Then we put a purebred Hereford bull over them and we get really nice calves. To maximise the amount of money that we make out of the calves, we just put in work rather than buying milk powder. So it just takes a little bit more time to milk the cows, but it saves us money by not purchasing the milk powder. It's So by doing a variety of things, if one thing doesn't work, you just move to the next thing. It makes it not so boring. We enjoy what we do, so variety is really good. When I first came here 20 years ago, I didn't even know what a hogget was. So yeah, it's kind of all learning curve all the way around. Stuart's learning about the cows and I'm learning about the sheep.
Come on. Come on, pig.
Some of the milk also goes to raise a pig that they're fattening.
There we go. It's nice to have fresh pork on the table, all milk fed, no solids. Yummy but a pain in the butt to be doing when you've got other jobs to carry on with.
Most of the milk gets taken up the lane to another paddock where the older calves are waiting to be fed.
These were the first lot we got in. They were 3 weeks old. Keep me entertained in the morning and Barbara entertained at night. Good watching them grow. They're onto the grass now. They didn't like the straw that we gave them when they were in the shed, so put them out here and they seem to like the grass better. Mind you, who likes dry wheat bix?
Feeding the calves keeps Stuart busy in spring, but he won't need to feed them for much longer.
They're getting close to 100 kilos. So probably in another fortnight I'll weigh some and then I'll know how much longer I have to work. And then, yeah, once they start getting up there, then we can start drying the cows off as well and go back to a normal life of farm work.
Although a lot of the work on this farm is anything but normal. The original covered yards next to the wool shed are in use almost every day. Most of the work is for Barb Peel's wool business, and today one of her staff, Marilyn Butler, is busy dyeing wool.
A lot of covered yards only get used when you bring sheep in. But this has got so many other uses that poor old Stu, when he wants to use his yards, he has to ask me, I want to use my yards on Saturday. Yeah, okay. So a lot of tidying up to do. This is combed merino. It's 19 micron. And my object here is to make it beautiful colours, but still spinnable. People love spinning this stuff. It's very popular. Wanting it to come out with reasonably clear blobs of colour. And I'm going to spread the colour through and underneath it. Doesn't matter if there's a wee bit of white there. That looks quite nice when you spin it up. You get little flecks of white in it. All right. Pretty good.
20 minutes in boiling water and the colours will set. Next day, the sheep yards are being used again for their original purpose. There's more shearing to be done. Coloured wool has a long tradition here. Stuart's parents got into breeding coloured sheep nearly 50 years ago.
Started when we had 2 or 3 coloured ewes running around. So Mum got into spinning and then Father thought, well, we might as well have a few more coloured sheep, and then we built up over time.
Marilyn reckons she's got the best job. Unlike everybody that works here, I like playing with wool. I'm a bit like an alcoholic in a brewery. You know, Barb's got all that beautiful wool out there. I was very lucky when I was 10 years old. At a country school in Southland, our teacher's wife was a spinner. And she taught us all to spin. We made our own spindles with bits of dowling and cup hooks and milk powder tin lids. And we all learned to spin. We stood on our desks and spun on our spindles and dropped them on the floor. And I just fell in love with the whole idea of spinning. When you're selling wool products and for people to make things out of, you get the really nice people. And we're really lucky. We get to see things that they've made. They bring their wonderful things back to show us. That's really brilliant. We get some lovely customers.
Young lads!
What are you up to?
Young gent! How are
One
you?
of the regulars is Artie
Hello.
Bloxham, who's a keen wool spinner.
What are you doing here?
Oh, I thought I'd better come up and see if you're keeping out of mischief. Got some special stuff for you.
Is that the stuff that Marilyn dyed?
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, for
Artie
10
first learned to spin to help heal a broken wrist and found it had other benefits too.
It's good and relaxing. Got rid of the arthritis out of my joints. Love coming up here. The characters, good team of girls, and they enjoy a joke. And no, brilliant. They actually make a really good product.
Artie, he comes quite often. He loves to spin, and we're able to share what he enjoys. And there's a lot of people that come in that do different things, and we're able to feed their excitement and learn things from them.
It's Hyundai country time. Isaac's Electrical developed their solar water pump to work reliably in even the harshest environments. Be in to win your very own solar e-pump. Enter at hyundaicountry.co.nz.
Visa goes to the ends of the earth, so you can too. Pay securely at over 80 million locations worldwide when you travel with Visa.
The wool shed on this South Otago farm houses some serious industrial equipment. 2 massive wool carding machines that process fleeces to make them ready for spinning into thread. Lindsay Keegan is new to this. She's just started working for the owner, Barbara Peel.
There you go.
Thank you. That looks good. Brilliant. How many of the balls was this for a customer?
She wants half a dozen of them.
Oh my goodness. Is the spread all right for the what's coming up at the other end? Yep. Yep, perfect. Does this need to be any wider or smaller? But
Oh, you're the best apprentice I've ever had, Lindsay.
Oh, thank you. Aren't I the only apprentice?
Oh, you are the only one. There's 37 rollers and 90% of them are going backwards. So the rollers that are going forwards are the ones carrying the wool, and the ones that are going backwards are the ones doing the work. When Grandma used to sit there with her hand carders and card the wool like this, that's what this machine's doing. All these rollers are run by leather belts and chains. So there's not too much that goes wrong with them, just a lot of oil to keep them going. I love the machine, the workings of the machine. My dad still is, he's a fitter turner engineer, and I guess maybe I got some of his genes, but yeah, I really enjoy the machinery. Yeah, anything that goes wrong, yeah, I like to get my hands dirty and fix it. And if I can't fix it, well, Stuart comes and does it for me.
Meanwhile, Barb's husband Stuart is working a paddock with power harrows before he plants it in a summer crop. His dog Jess goes everywhere with him.
She's the supervisor. Make sure everything's done properly. Tries to be the tractor driver, but can't steer the tractor very well. Another set of eyes and ears.
Stuart's just finished modifying the harrows by adding a set of grubbers to help break the soil up.
I found the steel in a friend's yard and saw it there, and I thought, oh, I can put that to use, and it just evolved from there. Just makes the ground a bit softer and easier for the power harrow to munch it up.
With 160 hectares of land, Stuart says it's hard to make a living just through livestock farming.
It's not sustainable on its own. Yeah, a small farm nowadays. But with the wool carding, it just, if one's running short on money, then the other one props it up and vice versa. So yeah, it all works hand in hand.
Their wool business, Tally Ho Wool Carding, has its own shop on the farm, where Barb sells her carded and dyed wool to people who want to spin or weave. She finds woolcraft hugely satisfying and enjoyable.
You can do anything with wool. It's really, really versatile. As long as you've got an imagination or you see something you want to do, you can achieve it. So sheep's wool is not just wool for a jersey. You can make floor mats with it. You can make cloth. You can make clothing. It's a very good medium to use.
Barb's always busy, but she feels it's important to take time for herself. That often involves riding her horse, either on the farm or further afield.
You can't buy time with money, so money's not everything, but time and enjoying yourself is as well. Downtime is important to me. Riding my horse it's something that takes me away from everything else. I can just go off into my own little world. But if you have a look around you, it's just absolutely beautiful here, so why wouldn't you enjoy it?
Today, she's heading down the road to Lawrence to take part in a training session. The Lawrence Rodeo Grounds are the only place in New Zealand with a course set up for a growing sport called the Cowboy Challenge. Rider Stars Tairua says it's to help riders train younger horses who are by nature very nervous of anything unknown.
They generally will stay away from something that looks like a threat. So we bring them down here to help them learn about those flappy, scary things. So when they go out trekking or hacking or to a A&P show or anything like that, then the flappy, scary things aren't so scary. They know what they are and it's not such a high anxiety outing for them. So they soon learn that they can relax and be safe and that the person that they're with is there to help them along and they can do it together as a team. It's not about kicking them in the guts and yanking on their face. It's about having them willing and wanting to learn and wanting to try new things with us.
Keep it nice and straight this time.
Barb finds South Otago a warm and welcoming place.
There you go.
A lot goes on around the community. There's always little niches that you can just pop yourself into if they suit you. But this group here, I just feel that I fit in and I really enjoy it.
Good to go, Barb.
By riding, it just takes everything that I do at home and leaves it behind. And when I go out with my horse, I'm in a different place. So it's really good. It means that when I go back home, I'm refreshed to start again.
Back on the farm, Barb has other ways to relax, such as spinning wool with an electric wheel. She'll sell the wool in the shop.
It relaxes me spinning, and I can do whatever I want. I watch telly while I'm doing it, and sometimes I just sit in silence and do it. What I like about our business is that we enable people to use their own imaginations through craft. By supplying them with wool in the form we do, it means that they can then take it home and then create things for themselves, which is really, really important. So we're just feeding people's imaginations.
For both Barb and Stuart, there's always something different to do.
Variety makes life a bit more interesting. Takes the monotony out of it or the boredom out of farming, and you might be out lambing a ewe 1 minute and the next minute you're replacing a sprocket on the carding machine. It's never boring.
It's Hyundai country time. Isaac's Electrical developed their solar water pump to work reliably in even the harshest environments. Be in to win your very own solar e-pump. Enter at hyundaicountry.co.nz. Always a favourite on every rural road. Hyundai Country Calendar.
the wild crop of Siberian cherries that's blossomed on a Canterbury farm.
They're unlike anything else in New Zealand. Almost all of our cherries are black. I really enjoy being self-sufficient. It makes for a bloody good life.
And his 80-year-old father also loves his work.
If I didn't, I'd be in a retirement home by now.
It's September, and on this farm in inland Canterbury, there's a crop coming into bloom that could be regarded as either a pest or a bonus windfall.
We believe they've originally come over from Europe. They're a Siberian cherry, but they grow all over Europe. They've come over with one of the first settlers in this area. They've been around for an awfully long time. I've got a few logs there that I've milled where you can count the rings, and they go back to about 1860s, somewhere about there. Doc did a study a few years back and found that we have around about 14,000 naturally seeded cherries. They are an invasive species, but they don't tend to spread out of this area. The native birds will only fly so far with them before they drop them. And the pit requires around about 2 weeks of being frozen to be able to germinate.
Nigel Wilson says his family farm had the right conditions for the cherries to spread, and he's decided to make the most of them. He keeps them under control with some unconventional pruning.
There's so many trees. It is crazy. It's not what you usually think of when you think of fruit trees, because we're used to orchards where they're all set out in rows and perfectly spaced. This is just thickets. We have to thin the trees to get the best fruit from them. So for the last 15 years, we've been going through and thinning the trees out. And initially I was using the wood for firewood and for making green stick furniture in my workshop. But then latterly I found that it's a very highly prized wood for barbecuing, for the flavor it imparts when you burn it.
Once the tree fruits, the cherries are guaranteed to be very sweet.
They've got about 4 times the amount of sugar as a normal table cherry. Back in Europe, they're used for making schnapps, brandy, you name it, they'll make it out of it.
The cherry blossom is attracting brewers and chefs from Christchurch, including the beer maker from Two Thumbs Brewery, Alex Grimshaw.
Maybe about 2 years ago, Nigel dropped off some of his cherries for us. And along with some rhubarb, we threw those into a barrel and aged it on an amber ale for about 2 years. And came out tasting like sherbet, so we're hoping to get just as much success from the flowers. We're planning on brewing a lager out of these blossoms and trying to basically get as much flavour out of them as possible. And just seeing what happens is a bit of an experiment, really.
Chef Jack Schul is a fan of their sweetness.
I'm going to be turning most of this into a vinegar, some of it into chung as well. A chung is a Korean syrup where you pack just sugar and the cherry blossom and you muddle it up and you leave it for about 4 weeks for it to age and mature. I'll be using that chung in quite a few things. So I'm going to make a cherry pie using Nigel's cherries from last season, and I'll garnish it with the actual blossom as well, and I'll try and candy some blossom.
We have about 6 or 7 different chefs who really love the cherries for their flavor. I am a great believer in if you are rich in something, then you should share it.
Nigel's father, David Wilson, bought this farm at Glentui, an hour northwest of Christchurch, 15 years ago, to raise the animal that he most loves farming.
I think anyone who has farmed deer gets caught up in it. Deer, they're wonderful animals. Most deer farmers are passionate about deer. I like cattle, but they're not quite the same. They take a lot of patience Some days you won't get them out of gate, and you've just got to be patient. As they always say, try 3 times and then go away for a cup of tea and come back again.
Today, David's son Nigel and their neighbour Debbie Simpson are helping David with feeding out. It's September, and the stags are growing new antlers, which will soon be removed by a vet for their velvet.
Velvet has been doing very well. It's predominantly a Korean, Chinese market. Here it's just a byproduct, really.
David says they remove the antlers before they fully grow and harden, because otherwise the stags become too destructive.
We want to take the antlers off, otherwise they'd be doing an awful lot of damage too. They do quite a lot of damage anyway. One year they came down this fence line here and broke 10 fence posts. In the roar, we leave them, these big guys, they'll chase us. They'll chase us out of the paddock. Even in the Polaris, they would turn this over, no problem. I mean, they're big, strong animals. Get their head down, they would just flip you.
After a wet winter, there's plenty of grass for the hinds, but because they're pregnant, they need extra feed.
What we're feeding them is spent grain that we pick up from a brewery in Christchurch, and it's essentially a mix of malted barley, some oats, some rye, but it's very, very tasty. There's still quite a bit of sugar left in it. The deer just love it. The cattle have run up from where they are usually grazing because they can smell the grain. And as you can hear behind me, they're quite anxious to be fed as well, but they don't really need it at the moment.
This time of year, deer look extremely scruffy. They're just losing their winter coats. It doesn't all just drop off straight away, so there's bits hanging off. Deer never look good in September or October. And once the winter coat has gone, they'll start to look much sleeker, shinier, and altogether better looking. They've only been domesticated for a very, very short time, and we're only just getting to know all the pitfalls of domesticated deer. You know, 1970s really, which in the evolution of domesticated animals is nothing.
The deer provide David with an income, but Nigel makes most of his working with wood.
This building, which is now my workshop, it used to be a shearing shed, but we don't have any sheep. Well, I've got 2 that keep the grass down around the wool shed here. I do a lot of woodworking out of it, custom woodworking. Basically, I pick and choose what I do, but it sustains us a wee bit. I specialize in timber frame, so big timbers, classic, mortise and tenon, wooden peg, pergolas, gazebos, Viking drinking halls, that kind of thing.
Nigel was born in Scotland and came to New Zealand to live as a youngster.
Originally, I came to New Zealand when I was 9. My mum was a Kiwi and my dad's Scottish, and we moved back when I was 9 years old, and then I went off traveling and ended up living in Canada, married with kids. But I came back here 5 years ago, got divorced, but I just love it here. There's nothing that could drag me away from this place. It's just fantastic. What we've got there now is a pedestal, a figured pedestal of Douglas fir for a bar leaner for a local bar. Yeah, and it's quite nice and shapely for the drinkers to appreciate. They've made a lot of green stick furniture, which is a particular technique that uses green wood, so I can cut it and be using it 5 minutes later. But it has a particular look. It's very hobbitish, so it fits in New Zealand or Middle Earth or wherever. Nothing gets wasted around here. Also, nothing gets thrown away, as you can see.
And when it's time to pick the cherries, the community is there, rain or shine.
Pretty good.
My name is Thomas James. I'm a Hyundai Pinnacle Program student. The internal combustion engine is a 150-year-old machine. Electricity will soon power everything. Cars, ships, planes, shoes. Storing it is the trick. We live in a world plagued with opportunities. What's an obstacle but just something to climb?
What's going on? What's this?
Atoll.
Okay, how much?
Just the little one today.
It's December on the Wilson family farm in Canterbury, and the wild Siberian cherries are ripe. Nigel Wilson has invited friends to pick, and he's not about to cancel the day.
This is the very short window we have every year, that little Christmas New Year window. The rain adds an awful lot of urgency. When the rain happens like this, and your cherries are just coming right, the rain will cause them to split. So it's a matter of taking all that we can get off before they split, because once they split, they'll ruin very quickly.
Sweet. They good?
What I'm doing here is basically clearing out all of the invasive cherry trees that are around those other cherry trees. And what that does is give more light to the one that I've left. It will be more fruitful in future, and the light will get in here and the pasture will grow for our cattle. We have a good time. Life isn't all about work and it's not all about play, but a damn good mix. And that's what we try to do here, even on the rainy days. It's not all sunny days. We've got some beef on the barbecue today, and we've got some wild venison.
Among the pickers is home brewer Phil Jack.
Every year I make beer from these cherries. This is a milk stout. It's been aged over the cherries for about 3 months. So there's a nice aftertaste of the cherries. And this year we're probably going to be doing a wheat beer. So nice to have access to the stuff. It makes for a nice, smooth, sort of summery, dark beer.
At this time of year, it's especially a good time with work slowing down. It's a good time to reconnect with family and friends. So one of the things we really like to do is just make sure that everybody comes as well fed, well watered. We put on a keg of cherry beer so that people know why they're picking the cherries, you know, give them a taste of the product. And it's all local produce and it's bloody good flavor. The good thing with an unmanaged block like this is they're coming in at different times. So we've got 100 trees over here that are ripe, and in amongst those 100 trees, we've got another 100 trees that are nowhere near ripe. And hopefully next week when the rain stops, we'll get a pick of those ones.
Deer are the main focus on the Wilson farm, and by mid-December, most of the hinds have had their fawns.
We start fawning in November. Very difficult to tell at this stage how many fawns we've got. They're only just up and running, and we never know until we bring them in end of January to ear tag them to get an accurate count.
David Wilson occasionally and very carefully drives into the paddocks to check on progress.
We usually leave them alone, leave hinds to get on with it, and it's only now that the fawns are starting to run that we come into the paddock. We're just being very careful in this long grass to make sure that there are no fawns hiding. The mothers hide them in the grass. Amazingly, they just stay there until you can be right on top of them without seeing them. So I'm just being very, very cautious. Hinds bark, you can hear them sort of barking, and the fawns have a little twitter. So they'll find their own fawn, and some days they leave the fawn for most of the day, and then they come back later on and pick it up, feed it, and go off again. You can get close to them one day and not get anywhere close to them the next day. They are very, very nervous animals. So the best thing is just to leave them to it. It's looking reasonable this year, although we've had very wet weather during fawning. Hopefully it will be a good year. They've got plenty of feed now, so the hinds are lactating well.
With so much cherry wood on the farm, Nigel Wilson is working to develop a market for it. He says it's ideal for barbecuing and smoking. He's experimenting with using the Siberian wild cherries as a marinade for locally grown Akaroa salmon, which he then smokes with the cherry wood.
In our increasing trying to find things to do with our cherries, we've approached Akaroa salmon about seeing what we can do with them. So one of the things I'm doing is trialing different brines. So you can put the salmon in a brine that is full of cherries. It takes on a really rich color because of the cherries, but it also takes on just a hint of the flavor. The cherry brine brings sugar and salt into the meat, and then the smoke traps that in, and you end up with a much more juicy product. It keeps the moisture inside. All that flavor is locked in, so even the smallest bit will satisfy the taste buds.
With the salmon smoked, it's time to head into Christchurch. But leaving this farm isn't straightforward.
It's Hyundai country time. Isaac's Electrical developed their solar water pump to work reliably in even the harshest environments. Be in to win your very own solar e-pump. Enter at hyundaicountry.co.nz.
To leave the Wilson family farm north of Oxford in Canterbury, you need to cross the Garry River.
We never really know what we're going to get when we get to the crossing. It's a loose shingle crossing and it changes sometimes daily. And at the moment we've just had about 60 mils of rain, so it hasn't completely washed out, but it's made it challenging.
Nigel Wilson's driving to Christchurch to do a few errands. He needs to visit Two Thumbs Brewery, but first he's dropping into the Akaroa Salmon Company.
I come into Akaroa Salmon here and bring some of the dry cherry wood, drop that off so that they can sell some in their shop.
All right, mate, I got it.
Hey man, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Good. Their customers can then take chunks away and do home smoking that way.
Nick Mavramatis is Akaroa Salmon's marketing manager.
This one is brined in cherry and salt only, so the sugar...
Nigel has brined the salmon in wild cherries, then smoked it with cherry wood.
We're really keen to try something new, so we've been only ever using Manuka. It's a pretty classic recipe that we use, really simple. Just trying to get that sort of essence of smoke flavour in there. So I think we'll be able to pick that up quite a lot in the change in there. So, I think using some of the Siberian cherry as an invasive species is a really good story there as well. So let's put it to a positive use.
It was looking at what can we do with the cherries, just to add in a bit more and diversify. How can we make this invasive species work for us? So yeah, that's what we're doing here, is trying to develop these little side markets.
Then it's off to the Two Thumbs Brewery to pick up spent grain left over from the brewing process.
I come into the brewery whenever they are doing their brews. Part of the brewing process is they crush the malted barley, sometimes oats and rye in there. we've struck a really great arrangement. I come in, I drop off an empty bin, and I pick up a full one. As soon as I get it from here, I take it back to the farm, load it onto the wee trailer that we've built to help feed it out. And then the very next morning, it's on the ground in front of the deer, and they're enjoying it.
Nigel's father, David, is 80 and still happy in his work. He accepts that the venison market has its ups and downs.
It's had its moments. We had some very good years and some very bad years. It's very cyclical. Most of the venison was going to white tablecloth businesses in Europe, America, and that was hit very hard with COVID. Diversified into a bit more retail. So there's more being sold from supermarkets in Germany, Sweden, America. It's a retirement project. There'll come a day where I decide that I'm not getting out of my bed, but at the moment, I'm still getting up.
There we go. Up. I'm fully invested in this place. I absolutely love it. I know my father absolutely loves it. Otherwise, as he said, he wouldn't be here. Come on. Come on. You can actually tell that it's having its effect. Nobody believes he's as old as he is. He's like a spring chicken some days. I must admit, I want some of that too. That's why I'm here. It is a great work-play balance. You're never going to be a millionaire. That doesn't matter to me at all. It's all about the lifestyle, being able to live off the land and closely with the land, interact with nature and try not to impact it too much. We're rich in beauty here. We're rich in cherries certain times of the year. We're rich in experiences. And we're also rich in peace and quiet. You wouldn't know with me around because I'm loud, but we are rich in peace and quiet. And a lot of my friends and family and community sometimes need that, and we can be that for them. Incredibly thankful to my dad for allowing us to do that and allowing us to coexist with him. It's wonderful.
Country Calendar was brought to you by Hyundai.